Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
Story 1. I was invited to my girlfriend's cousin's wedding. I barely made it out alive. I'd only been dating my girlfriend for 2 months. Honestly, you could hardly even call it a real relationship yet. But strangely enough, she invited me to her cousin's wedding. I felt a little nervous about it, though deep down I was glad she was taking things seriously enough not to shy away from introducing me to her family. I was worried about what they might think of me. Amelia was a jackpot, not only incredibly beautiful and charming, but also devoted and always cheerful, like something a person would dream up for themselves. That's how she felt to me. I honestly couldn't understand what she saw in me. I never thought of myself as anything special, but it wasn't a dream. We were sitting in my car, pulling into the courtyard of Amelia's family farm. Supposedly, her family was insanely wealthy, or so I gathered, because their estate was so large that we've been driving off the main road for almost an hour since leaving the little town where she said the land was already her father's property. I'm pretty sure they own several hectares. Are you nervous? Amelia asked sweetly, snapping me out of my thoughts as she touched my shoulder. I just gave her a nervous smile. Of course I was nervous, but I didn't want to say it out loud. Her father was probably some filthy rich landowner or something. Who knows? One thing was for sure, this wedding wasn't going to be simple. The whole place felt strange. Amelia left me in one of the rooms in the house for almost the entire afternoon. Supposedly, it was all a family thing, and she asked me to just rest. I'd driven a long way, and we'd be celebrating later that night anyway. The ceremony itself was beautiful. They held it on the farm, inside a church that, according to Amelia, her great-grandfather had built on the estate long ago. But the whole thing felt oddly lifeless, as if everyone there had already been through before. That's how they acted, and Amelia was a bridesmaid. So I was left alone for almost the entire event. Honestly, I didn't even understand why I was there. Just a guy in the early stages of dating a girl, sitting at her cousin's wedding. I was completely out of place, like someone who'd ended up there by accident. Finally, when the ceremony was over, Amelia came back to me. "I'm sorry, Frank," she said, giving me a quick kiss. "I know I'm leaving you alone a lot, but my parents are really old-fashioned." "It's fine," I waved it off. "We'll dance at the party." She kissed me again before hurrying off to the family photo shoot. I watched the relatives from a distance. They all seemed so theatrical. Maybe it was just my nerves, but it was like they'd done this exact photo shoot countless times before. Then someone called out that we could head to the dinner tent. Not far from the big house stood a massive white marquee. That's where the dinner, the party, and the drinking would last until morning, celebrating the wedding. Em didn't come with me there either. She was still caught up in family photos. I walked over with a few guests and distant relatives, only to be hit with another surprise. I'd been placed at a strange table. According to the seating chart, I was at a large round table with a completely random assortment of people. Naturally, Em was seated at the family table, far away from me. This wedding was getting worse by the minute. I figured everyone had been waiting for dinner, because the tent filled up fast. At least at my table, every seat was already taken. It was like no one there actually knew each other. At the other tables, people were chatting, laughing, telling stories. You could tell they'd known each other for years. But at ours, it felt like sitting on a bus with a bunch of random strangers. Awkward smiles, the occasional attempt at small talk, but the whole thing stayed uncomfortable and distant. "I'm Carter," said the man to my right suddenly, holding out his hand. He looked a little drunk, but not to an obnoxious degree. "Frank," I replied, shaking his hand. "Who are you here with?" Carter asked before taking a big swig from the beer in his hand. My girlfriend's one of the bridesmaids. I told him. She's also the bride's cousin. What about you? Oh, I'm just a groom's mailman, Carter said with a straight face. I laughed. I figured he was joking. Or maybe there was just something about this family I didn't get. Either way, sitting there was painfully awkward. Luckily, the food was finally served before long. By then, every table in the tent was full, and everyone seemed to be busy with their dinner. Or at least that's what I assumed they were focused on. The atmosphere was getting livelier. People were drinking, and some had even started dancing. But I still felt out of place. I'd barely seen him all evening. Why the hell had I agreed to come here? I'd even convinced myself she might introduce me to her father. I'd only seen him once during the wedding ceremony, talking with some older couple, not even glancing in my direction. I decided to head to the bathroom. Besides, after all the drinks I'd had, I was barely holding it in. Outside the tent, there was a small structure set up with old-fashioned outhouse toilets. But the moment I stepped out of the tent, I nearly pissed myself on the spot. An old lady was staring at me in the dark. Her eyes seemed to glint in the moonlight. Jesus. I exhaled sharply. You really scared me. The old woman shuffled closer in her little beige suit. I don't like to be rude to the elderly, but she reeked like she hadn't bathed in weeks. Her face was pale and wrinkled, and her yellowish eyes seemed to glow. Are you feeling all right? I asked, a little uneasy. Oh dear, the woman croaked in her raspy voice. I'm feeling just fine. Did you eat much? Not too much meat, I hope? Well, I stammered awkwardly. Yeah, I ate. By then, she was right in front of me. Something about her was deeply unsettling, like she was starving for something. She licked her lips, and I could swear I saw a drool drip from the corner of her mouth. Oh, Grandma Zepro, came a familiar voice from behind me. Don't start talking nonsense again. It was Em, hurrying over to the old woman. She hugged her and patted her gently. The whole thing was unbearably awkward, like everyone here was out of their minds. Frank, I'm sorry, Em said, turning to me. I'll walk Grandma back inside. Then I promise I'll spend time with you. I just nodded dumbly. Right now, I just wanted to use the bathroom. And honestly, I was starting to get fed up with Em's bizarre wedding. And yeah, I was feeling a little hurt. Still, I shouldn't have been mad at Em. The rest of the evening actually went pretty well. Em spent most of the time with me. We finally danced, had a few drinks, and she even introduced me to the newlyweds. They were nice, friendly, down-to-earth people. We didn't talk much, of course. It was their night, and they had plenty of guests to mingle with. But for the first time that evening, I felt more relaxed, not like I was stranded in a sea of strangers. Sure, Em would occasionally stop to chat with someone, but it was always about ordinary stuff. How they were doing, how they liked the party, whether they were ready for the rest of the night, things like that. But Em was clearly looking forward to something. She spoke to me with almost childlike excitement about the raffle, where they'd draw a guest name, and that person would win something. Anyone could be picked. She even got me a little hyped for it. Even though we had no idea what the prize would be, finally, around midnight, it was time for the raffle. Em told me it was a family tradition. They'd done it at every wedding since she was a kid. I didn't think much of it, until I suddenly heard my name called out loud. I jumped up, startled. Everyone clapped and smiled. At least, most of them were cheering. I was the winner. Great. The most random guy here just won the family raffle. That ought to make me popular. So, Em, what's my prize? I whispered to her, standing to my right. Em just looked at me, maybe a little disappointed, but still smiling proudly. She didn't say a word, just stared at me with those big brown eyes. Come with me, said the bride, stepping up in front of me. I hadn't even noticed when she came over. It caught me off guard, and the fact that she reached out her hand for me to take was even more unsettling. What did they want from me? Why couldn't someone else have won this stupid thing? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. What is this? I turned to her for help, but she just kept smiling at me, still looking a little downcast. Go with her, Frank, Em said softly. Please, if you do this, you'll win the whole family over. Please, it's tradition for us. Her pleading softened me a little, but I was still uncomfortable. Everyone was staring at me with these knowing grins. Why were they looking at me like that? What was I supposed to do? The bride took my hand and led me away. I didn't resist. I just hoped this dumb little game would be over soon, so we could go back and pretend I was just some random guy at this wedding again. Carol, right? I asked the bride as we slipped out of the tent through a back exit. Where are we going? Just shut up and come, Carol said softly. I felt awkward and uncomfortable. Carol was a young woman with short blonde hair and my girlfriend's cousin. What the hell did she want from me? Out here in the dark, in the middle of the field. She led me toward a small wooden shed, and when we reached it, she ushered me inside. A single dim lamp burned in the cramped wooden space. It felt like I was a teenager again, hiding somewhere, nervously waiting for a first kiss. The whole thing was awkward as hell. Carol, please, I don't know what this is about, but I'd rather just go back. She just stared at me coldly. All the warmth in her face was gone, replaced by a look of sheer contempt. Then, in one sudden motion, she shoved me hard against the wall. I glared back at her, now angry myself. Carol, I really don't know what the hell this is, but please stop. She stood with her back to the shed door, glaring at me. Then, with a sudden move, she slid the straps of her pretty pink dress off her shoulders. I froze in shock. What the hell was this? Some medieval bullshit. My prize for the tombola was supposed to be a wedding night with a bride, but that wasn't what happened. Carol's shoulders popped out of joint at the same time, her arms stretching unnaturally long, her nails growing into massive claws. As I looked at her face, her once pretty features sagged into wrinkled folds of loose flesh. Drool poured from her mouth, and her sharp, tiny teeth glinted yellow in the lamplight. I didn't even have time to process it. Carol's long, clawed hand slashed at me hard. My jacket and shirt tore open instantly, and a burning pain shot through my chest. Blood seeped through the shredded fabric. I collapsed to the floor from the pain, and she pounced again, driving her claws deep into my thigh. I screamed in agony, but luck was on my side. If I hadn't reached just a little farther across the floor, I'd probably be dead now. A pickaxe head stuck out from behind a small crate. That was all I needed. My survival instinct kicked in. I grabbed the pickaxe and swung it hard, burying it in Carol's side. Carol, what a thing she'd become, let out a piercing shriek, her yellowish eyes blazing with rage. I didn't hesitate. I yanked the pickaxe free and brought it down again with all my strength. One of her arms came off almost on its own, spraying foul-smelling blood everywhere, but I didn't stop. I swung again, splitting her skull open. I kept hitting, over and over, until she collapsed to the floor and the stench of her black, reeking blood filled the room. I wrapped my jacket around my injured thigh. It was bleeding badly, so I had to do something. My thoughts were racing. How could I have been so stupid? How could I ever believe a woman like Em would want me? And hell, we met on the damn subway. What was I thinking? Love at first sight? But what pissed me off the most was this whole fucked up game. I hadn't won the tombola at all. I was the prize. Fucking monsters. I wasn't gonna die here. Darling, I hope you left some for me. A voice called from outside. The real party's about to start inside. I kicked open the little wooden door and swung the pickaxe down. It was Carol's husband, Tim. My attack caught him completely off guard. He didn't even have time to react. One clean strike, right in the middle of his forehead. Tim collapsed, and I started hacking at him again with the pickaxe. Then I heard the screams. They were coming from the tent. Shouts, wails, death cries. And then I understood everything. Some of the guests had been invited here for one reason only. So these things could eat them alive. A woman came running out of the tent. 3 grotesque creatures, just like Carol, chasing right behind her. They caught up in seconds, knocking her to the ground with their long arms, and started tearing her apart exactly as she was. Fuck this. I was getting the hell out. My way out was my car. It was parked in front of the house. And the keys were in my room. I was not dying here. Luckily, the house was in the opposite direction from the tent, so I just limped toward the old manor. The creatures were still slaughtering the guests. Hellish sounds echoed from the tent, but I didn't give a damn. There was no one left for me to worry about. Em was one of those twisted freaks too, and I'd even slept with her. The thought that I'd been deceived for months made my blood boil. I smashed the front door open with the pickaxe. Thankfully, our room was on the ground floor, so I didn't have to limp far to find it and grab the car keys. There's a God. Never would have thought it'd be this easy to get out of this hellhole. But when I stepped back into the hallway, there she was. The old hag I'd seen earlier, still drooling as she stared at me. "What do you want, Granny?" I growled, raising the pickaxe. Zepro Granny didn't answer. She just started swelling up, transforming just like Carol had. But this was something else. The hallway walls cracked as her arms shot out, her body twisting into a massive, wrinkled, greasy mound of flesh. I stared in horror at the disgusting transformation, then heard sounds from the other end of the hallway, right behind me where I'd come in. Another creature stood there. It had a long neck and even longer clawed hands. I moved fast. I jumped back into the room and slammed the door shut. I shoved a small dresser in front of it, then shoved the car keys deep into my pocket, so I wouldn't lose them. I had just opened the window to climb out when a huge impact, or maybe an explosion, blasted me clear out of the room. I sat up in the garden, gasping for air. The wall of the house was gone, replaced by a massive, pulsating tentacle. Dust choked me as I coughed. Two creatures were forcing their way out from the rubble of the collapsed section. I had to get to the car. I had to get out of this place as soon as possible. As fast as I could, I rushed to my car, my little green Ford. I'd never been so happy to see it. There it was, untouched. The moment I jumped inside, the ground began to shake. This was my last chance to get the hell out of here. But when I turned the key and switched on the headlights, my stomach dropped. Em was standing just a short distance away from my car. She looked human, but her face and mouth were smeared with blood. I just stared at her, hurt and betrayed. "Frank, you can't leave." Em shouted, "Oh, I'm leaving," and no one's going to stop me. I yelled back, my voice sharp with anger. "Frank, please," she continued. "You don't understand. Zepro isn't just anyone, he's a creator." I listened to her rambling in disgust, but then the ground shook again. My car jolted violently, and Em could barely keep her balance as everything trembled around us. "Frank," she screamed, "please. Something terrible will happen if you can't feed on your insides. Please. Ask your fucking mother." I muttered under my breath and slammed my foot on the gas. It could have been pure coincidence, or maybe the universe lining things up just right, but the moment I hit him with the car, the massive family house exploded. Her black, reeking blood splattered across my windshield, then spattered under my tires, jerking and spinning the car. That's when I saw what had taken the house's place. The building's remains were flung into the air, bricks, beams, chunks of wall crashing down everywhere. And in its place, a mountain of writhing flesh was growing. Tentacles whipped in every direction, dozens of yellow eyes glaring at the world, and at its peak, an enormous, gaping mouth yawned wide. I think I just unleashed something ancient, but I sure as hell wasn't going to sacrifice myself to save this pack of degenerate monsters. I floored it and drove away as fast as I possibly could. Story 2, 10 minutes. Till I die. 10 minutes. The text arrived from an unknown number. What the hell? I thought, balancing the cup of coffee in my left hand and my phone in the other. The time was just shy of 7 a.m. It was the early morning commute in one of the biggest cities in America. My boss was waiting. I dashed past the pawn shop, stopped at a busy street corner. Cars whirred by, oblivious to us pedestrians. Don't forget my latte. Mrs. Platt had screamed at me the other day. And don't be late. I'll do my best. I thought 9 minutes. I ignored the text, waited for the crosswalk to change. Why'd the cafe have to be so far away? Are you coming? A coworker, Ben, messaged me. Yes, almost there. The person next to me sneezed, and I glanced up at the office building. Only a few blocks away. Come on, crosswalk. Change. 8 minutes. Seriously, who is this? Your guardian angel? Winky face. Leave me alone. I blocked the number. Stepped into the street as the crosswalk changed. I reached the opposite sidewalk. Up ahead, the glittering tower of wealth management awaited me. I'd worked so hard to secure this position. Platt was one of the wealthiest investment bankers in all of America. If I succeeded in this role, I could get a job anywhere. I made it to the revolving doors, waved the security guard. Morning, Mo. Morning, Tris. I like Mo. He's nice to me. I stepped into the lobby. A mob of stressed-out PAs and interns filtered past, each desperate to prove their worth. 5 minutes. My phone buzzed. Damn bots. My thumbs raced across the screen. Stop texting me, or I'll call the police. I filed through the metal detector and progressed toward the elevators. It was like cutting through Tokyo traffic. Tris. A voice hissed behind me. I turned to see Ben, the resident East Coaster, who had always managed to talk down to me. What's taking you? I got held up at the cafe. He reached for the drink, but I stepped back. I'll bring it up. Better do it quick. She's about to start her meeting. Ding. Another text. Time's almost up. Who is this? I was so confused. If this was a scammer, how were they able to message me after I blocked their number? Everything okay? Ben prodded. Yeah, I just keep getting these weird messages. I think someone's hacked my phone. Better figure that out. If your phone goes off in our meeting, Platt will kill you. I blocked the new number and followed Ben to the elevators. I wondered if one of the interns was the culprit. There were a few I recognized from casual visits at the bar. There was Paul, the transplant from Wisconsin, and Desi, the overachiever from Harvard. But they didn't know me enough to harass me, right? Ding. The elevator arrow lit up and a collective sigh exited our lungs. Another text. Get on your knees right now. What? Do it or die. I swiveled my gaze. About 20 of us were packed together, desperate to pile into the approaching elevator. One of the interns, Vanessa, who I'd gone out with, eyed her phone, then looked up fearfully and knelt. I wasn't sure why, but out of instinct, I did the same. There was something about seeing her fulfill that action that compelled me to obey. I didn't even look up when I heard the first scream. I still don't know what happened, but when the elevator doors opened, something came out. Jesus. What the hell? I fell flat as bodies stampeded me. A woman's heel bit into the back of my hand. A man's knee collided into my spine. I gasped, feeling my bones crack as bodies trampled over me. There was a gunshot, a loud squeal, and a thump. I opened my eyes to see Mo, the security guard, white-knuckling his gun. Horror etched onto his face. My God, what is that? Piled among the bodies was a bat-like creature, drenched in blood. Long incisor like teeth jutted from its gaping mouth. You hurt? He asked, pulling me up. No. I wiped blood from my brow. At least, I don't think so. Another ding alerted me to my phone. Round 1 complete. Next 10 minutes will begin. Winky face. Story 3. Every year on my birthday, I receive a birthday card from someone I don't know. I am pretty sure I was 6 the first time I got a birthday card in the mail. I don't remember the exact age. What I do remember is a kitchen table, a bowl of cereal getting soggy in front of me, and my mom walking in with this bright, white envelope like she was holding something important. Look at this, she said. Somebody sent you mail. When you are a kid, mail feels like a grown-up thing. Bills, appointment reminders, junk coupons. Not for you. So when my mom handed it to me, I felt weirdly proud, like I had just leveled up. My name was on the front, just my first name. No last name. No return address in the corner. Who's it from? I asked. Probably family, she said. Someone being silly and forgot to write the rest. She said it with a smile, but it was the kind of smile that sticks for a second before it twitches at the edges. I tore it open. It was a generic card, balloons and cake. Inside, in neat bluing, were 2 words. Happy birthday. No name. No, from your cousin so-and-so. Just that. I remember turning it toward my mom, like she had the answer printed on the back. She looked at it for a few seconds, then put it on the counter. See, she said, somebody loves you. Eat your cereal. That should have been the end of it. A weird, harmless kid memory. But the next year, another envelope showed up. Same white. Same neat handwriting on the front with just my first name. Same lack of return address. Inside, the words, happy birthday. After the 3rd year in a row, my mom stopped calling it cute. I caught her once standing at the kitchen counter with the card open, just staring at it. She ran her thumb over the writing like she was trying to recognize it, then flipped the envelope over like something would magically appear on the back. Who is it from? I asked. She jumped like I had snuck up on her. I told you, she said. Probably someone in the family. Go get your shoes on. We're going to Nana's. She stopped leaving the cards out after that. They kept coming, though. Every year. Same day. Same kind of card. Same handwriting. When I hit middle school, they started to change. One year the inside said, happy birthday. I hope you get everything you asked for. Okay, not that weird. The next year it said, happy birthday. I hope practice went well. I'm proud of you. That one made my mom go very quiet. This was around the time I had started playing basketball more seriously. I stayed late after school to shoot. We had games. Parents sat in the stands and yelled, that kind of thing. The year after that, the card said, happy birthday. Nice job on making the team. You look strong out there. It was the first time anything in there made me feel sick. How do they know that? I asked my mom. She tried to brush it off, but her face gave her away. Maybe your coach, she said, or one of the other parents. Don't worry about it. She did, though. I heard her on the phone later that night. Not the words, just the tone. Low and tight. The next day, she took the cards to the police station. When she came back, she looked more frustrated than reassured. They said there's not much they can do, she told me. There's no threat, no name, nothing they can trace. They said it's probably some relative trying to be cute, or an older kid being weird. You showed them the part about the team? I asked. I did, she said. They told me if there are any threats, we should come back. The next year, the card was back to simple happy birthday again. Like whoever was writing them had been told to tone it down, or decided on their own to pull back a little. We moved when I was 13. My mom got a better job in another town. New house, new school, new everything. I remember standing in the driveway the week we moved in, looking at the mailbox with its fresh numbers and thinking, they don't know where I live now. I turned 14 a few months later. On the morning of my birthday, there was an envelope in the mail. Same white, same neat handwriting with just my first name. I stared at it for a long time before looking over to my mom. Maybe they forwarded it from the old place, she said, but we both knew that didn't make sense. Inside the card it said, happy birthday, new house, same you. That night my mom installed extra locks on the doors. After that, the card went quiet again. Still every year. Still on the exact day. Still the same handwriting. But the messages went back to simple. Happy birthday. Hope you have a great day. Hope you feel special. After a while, I got used to it. It became a thing that just happened. Like getting older. Like the seasons changing. Once a year, a reminder would show up that somebody out there knew where I lived and how old I was. And then life would keep moving. I moved out just after college into a crappy 2-bedroom house with thin walls and a door that stuck when it rained. It was the first place that was fully mine. Old couch, second-hand TV, bed frame I built myself and nearly broke in the process. Every year, a card still came. Somehow, someway, they knew my address every time. We were at a loss. When I was 23, I met my girlfriend. Her name isn't important here. She works a regular 9 to 5. She remembers birthdays, brings snacks to movie nights, gets emotionally invested in TV shows. Normal person stuff. One day while I was leaving work, my girlfriend called me. I had given her a key, but she left it back at her parents' house. I told her I kept one spare key under the welcome mat. I know, everyone tells you not to do that. I did it anyway. I was forgetful. I locked myself out once and had to call a locksmith. After that, the key went under the mat. Easy fix. We were getting closer, and her moving it was just a matter of time. We had been together almost a year before I told her about the cards. It came up because my birthday was coming up again, and I made some offhand joke about my mystery card arriving on schedule. She asked what I meant. I tried to keep it casual. Oh, it's just a thing, I said. I've been getting these random birthday cards since I was a kid. No name, no return address, same handwriting every year. I expected her to laugh, or at least be curious. Instead, she went completely still. How many years? She asked. Since I was like 6, I said. So, a lot. And you don't know who sends them. No. And they always find you, even when you move. Yeah. I shrugged. It's weird. I know. My mom went to the cops once, but they said it wasn't a big deal. It is a big deal, she said. That's not normal. That's stalking. That's someone keeping tabs on you. I told her she was overreacting. It wasn't like there were threats. No, I'm gonna kill you messages. No dead animals on the porch. Just birthday wishes. What do they write, she asked. Most of the time, just happy birthday, I said. Sometimes something like, hope you have a great day. That kind of thing. She stared at me like I had 3 heads. We should go to the police, she said. They won't do anything, I told her. They didn't when my mom went. There's nothing to go on. She let it go for the moment, but I could tell she didn't like it. A few days later, she sent me a link to a doorbell camera and said, I'll split it with you. I ordered it. It felt like an easy compromise. The camera came. I set it up. For a few months, it was just a nice way to see when packages arrived. I got used to checking it when I was at work, watching delivery drivers drop things off and neighbors walk their dogs. My birthday this year falls on a weekday, about a week before it. Stuff started showing up. The first one was my favorite takeout. The place around the corner that does those big greasy burgers. I always say I need to stop eating. The driver calls me from outside and says, I'm outside with your online order, and I almost tell him he has the wrong number. I open the door, bag in hand, receipt stapled to the top, no name in the from spot, just my address, paid online. I assume it is her. I text my girlfriend a picture of the bag. You really trying to clog my arteries before my birthday? She replies a minute later. What are you talking about? The burger is still warm. Fries perfect. Grease soaking through the paper in the exact way I like. I read the receipt again. No name. No little message line. You didn't send this? I type, no. Is this a bit or did someone send you food? I sit there for a second, thumb hovering over the screen. I tell her it must have been a delivery mix-up, or my mom or something. She sends a laughing emoji and tells me to enjoy it before they realize and take it back. 2 days later, a small box shows up, brown cardboard, no logo, my name and address printed on a label. Inside is a small stuffed dog, stupid looking, generic, the kind you win at a carnival game. It reminds me of the way she always points out stuffed animals in stores and tries to convince me we need one more pillow on the bed. I assume this one is her too. This time I call. Okay, so now you're just leaning into it, I say when she picks up. Into what? She asks. The stuffed dog, I say, trying to build up to something cute for my birthday. She laughs, confused. Babe, I didn't send you anything, she says. I've been at work all day. I tell her about the box, the dog, how it feels like something she would send. She goes quiet. Did it come from a company? She asks. Like Amazon, or was it just a plain box? Plain, I say. No name, no gift receipt. Maybe somebody sent it and didn't put their name on it. She says, maybe your mom? I know my mom's handwriting. I know her taste in cards. This doesn't feel like her. I tell myself it is still nothing. People get spam deliveries. Sometimes. Companies sometimes send little birthday gifts. Addresses get crossed. I throw the dog on the couch. Life keeps going. The next day, flowers. I come home from work, and there's this bright bouquet sitting on the doorstep. The kind that looks expensive, arranged in a glass vase with a big bow. The little plastic envelope holds a white card. I open it and read 4 words. It's here. Can't wait. There is no name. I text my girlfriend a picture. Okay, now I know this is you. She sends back 3 messages in a row. It's not. I swear. You need to call someone. My chest tightens. I stand there in the doorway staring at the flowers for a long time, the vase sweating onto my welcome mat. I call my mom. I tell her about the food, the stuffed dog, the flowers. She is quiet for a long beat and then says, "Save everything. Take pictures. Keep the receipts. This is too much." My girlfriend keeps texting. "Call the police. Please." A few minutes later, another package arrives. Smaller box. Light. Inside is one of the old birthday cards. Not an exact one I recognize. Just the same kind. Balloons. Cake. Glossy print. Inside, in that same neat blue ink, are 3 words. Counting down now. I stare at the handwriting until my eyes blur. My girlfriend texts me again. "This isn't a fun story anymore," she says. "This is serious. I'm scared for you." The next package comes later that night, just around dinner time. I almost don't open the door when the bell rings. I watch through the camera. Instead, I see the delivery driver set a box down. Take a picture, walk away. Plain brown cardboard. No logo, no return address. Just my name and my address, printed neatly. My hands are shaking when I open it. Inside is my spare key, the one from under the mat. Nothing else is in the box at first glance. Just the key sitting in the middle. There is a note taped to the underside of the lid. Same neat handwriting. Same blue ink. I don't need this anymore. Happy birthday week. I check under the mat, even though I already know what I'm going to find. Nothing. My throat goes dry. The air in my house feels wrong. Like I am standing somewhere I shouldn't be. Like I walked into my own place and found someone else's furniture already there. I back out of the doorway and lock the deadbolt. For the first time in my life, it doesn't make me feel better. I call 911. I tell the dispatcher everything in a rush. The cards, the gifts, the notes, the key. I keep expecting her to interrupt me and say this is fine. This is normal. I am being dramatic. She doesn't. "Do you feel safe in the residence right now?" she asks. "No," I say. My voice cracks. Someone had my key. They've been leaving stuff every day. They know where I live. They've known since I was a kid. "Okay," she says. "I need you to leave the residence and come down to the station. Bring the key and any notes you have. We can take a report and start file." "Shouldn't somebody come here?" I ask. If there's no one currently attempting to enter the residence and no immediate threat, the best thing is to come in person, she says. "Do you have transportation?" I tell her I do. She tells me again to leave. "Do not stay in the apartment. Bring the key. Bring the notes." I hang up and grab my wallet, my phone, the little evidence bag of cards and slips I have piled on the table. I hesitate, then call my girlfriend. She answers on the second ring. "Hey," she says, "are you okay?" "No," I say. "Listen, you're at work, right?" "Yeah." "Why?" "I need you to do something for me." I say, "When you get off, go straight to your parents' place. Do not go to my apartment. Do not meet me here. I'll call you from the station." "What happened?" she asks. Her voice gets thin. "I'll explain later." I say, "Please, just go to your parents' house. Stay there tonight." She is quiet for a second. "Okay," she says. "Call me as soon as you can." I lock the door behind me, even though I know there is no point. Whatever is happening has already made it inside at least once. Maybe more. I walk down the stairs with a key in my pocket, feeling like I am the one who has broken into someone else's life. Right now, I am sitting in the lobby of the police station. Everything is too bright. The chairs are plastic and hard. A TV in the corner plays some daytime talk show with the volume all the way down. There's a kid with his mom filling out a lost property form. A guy arguing at the front desk about getting his car out of impound. I am holding a clear plastic bag with a key and a stack of folded cards inside. My name has not been called yet. I have been here long enough that my leg won't stop bouncing. My phone buzzes. For a second, I think it is my girlfriend, or my mom. It is a notification from my video doorbell. Motion detected at your front door. My heart drops into my stomach. For a second, all I can think is she didn't listen. She went to the house anyway. I fumble with the phone, nearly drop it, catch it between my hands. I tap the notification with my thumb, and the live feed pops up. It is not her. A man is standing on my front step with his back to the camera. He is big, not just tall, but wide. Heavy shoulders stretching the fabric of a dark jacket. Hood up, hands at his sides. He stands so still that at first I think the feed has frozen. Then I hear him breathing. It comes through the little speaker. Slow, steady breaths. In, out, like he is calming himself down. He is angled perfectly so that the doorbell camera cannot see his face. Just the side of his jaw and the porch light. The curve of his ear, the back of his head. He does not knock right away. He just stands there. "You're being quiet today," he says finally. His voice is calm, softer than I expect. A little higher too, not some monster movie growl. Just a regular man's voice with something cold behind it. "I know you're there," he says. "You shouldn't keep me waiting." I grip the phone so hard my fingers hurt. I look up at the front desk, but nobody is looking at me. Nobody knows that on my screen, a man is standing outside my front door talking to an empty house like I am in there listening. "You know what today is," he says. "My favorite day." He lets that hang there. "Your birthday," he says. He lifts one hand. It is big enough to cover most of the doorbell housing as it moves past. The cuff of his jacket rides up, showing a wrist with pale skin and dark hair. He knocks 3 times. Each knock is slow and heavy, echoing through the tiny speaker. Knock, knock, knock. I feel it in my chest like he is hitting me instead of the door. "Come on," he says, a little more excited now. "You're being rude." He knocks again, harder this time. "Open the door," he says. It's time to celebrate. I stare at the screen. People move around me in the station. A printer whirs. Someone laughs at something the clerk says. None of them can hear the man at my door. "Open the door," he screams suddenly. The calm is gone. His voice cracks with something like joy. It's time to celebrate. He pounds his fist against the door. The camera shakes. The porch light flickers. He stays facing the door. He never turns around. He doesn't need to see me. In his mind, he already does. Nobody has called my name yet. He hits the door again, and again, and again. He is still knocking. He is still waiting for me. Story 4. I have a rather unusual life. You see, I'm quite ill. So ill that my husband has hired an entire staff to tend to me in the house. Because there is so much I cannot do anymore. Every morning, one of my attendants wakes me up and brings me my breakfast and my medication. So many pills that I have to take. But they do seem to help. Sometimes I can sit up in my bed and feed myself, though my hands shake terribly and my muscles are so stiff. Other times, my attendant must sit with me and feed me like I am an infant. It used to be embarrassing when I first started needing so much extra help, but I have become accustomed to it. I'm grateful for my attendants and everything they do for me. After breakfast, the children usually come visit me in my room. My beautiful angels, all with their halos of golden curls and their sparkling blue eyes. They run about the room, laughing and playing chase, jumping on my bed and leaping to the floor. I never caution them or tell them to stop, because it warms my heart to see them having so much fun. I have 3 babies, and they will always be my babies no matter how much time passes. My oldest, Jocelyn, is 8. She is starting to look so much like me, I think, with her sharp, pointed nose and her delicate brows, always furrowed in thought. Her cheeks are starting to lose the chubbiness of childhood, and my heart aches to see her growing up so fast. Simon is my middle child and my only boy, and what a boy he is. Wild, unbothered by the rules my husband and I tried to enforce so many times over the years. He has my full, pouty lips, and I can tell that when he is older, he will have his father's strong brow and jawline, and he's only 6 years old. He looks to me like a Greek carving out of marble. With the hard lines of his bone structure, they're still so softened by the babyishness of his features. But even he looks so grown up to me now. My youngest is Evelyn, and she is only 3. She has such a sweet, cherubic little face, with her impossibly long eyelashes and her rosy, chubby cheeks. She cannot run as fast or jump as high as her siblings, but she tags along as quickly as her little legs will carry her. She still cuddles with me the most, curling up next to me in my arms when I take my naps before lunch. The sweet smell of her hair fills my nose and sends me off to sleep so peacefully. When the children aren't tearing around my room like whirling dervishes, they often go out to play in the garden. Jocelyn and Simon are always so gentle with Evelyn, and always make sure to wait for her to catch up. I'm so lucky to have such sweet babies who love each other so much. I used to be able to join them in the garden before I got sick, and sometimes it makes me sad that I'm stuck inside in my room. I have a rotating cast of attendants who stay with me each day, understandably so, since I imagine that they all have families to get home to once their shifts caring for me are done. My husband has insisted I care around the clock, so I have 3 different attendants each day for each shift, morning, evening, and overnight. My attendants help me shower every morning and help me get dressed each day. It means so much to be able to wear clean, fresh clothes every day and not rot away in bed wearing the same gown for days on end. Tiffany, who is one of my favorites, will brush out my long hair and do it up in a lovely French braid for me. I only see her twice a week, though, and the other attendants don't seem to want to bother with my hair. It can become quite tangled by the time Tiffany comes again, and she will spend so much time patiently and gently teasing the knots from my hair. Sometimes she'll murmur as she combs and braids, "Miss Margaret, where are those beautiful babies of yours?" I always tell her they must be elsewhere in the house, perhaps playing with their dollhouse or sprawled in the playroom reading books. Tiffany always clicks her tongue and doesn't say anything to that. Of course, in addition to my attendants, I have my doctors. Dr. Phillips is a tall, thin man with graying hair cropped close and big, thick-framed black glasses that always look precariously close to sliding right off the end of his long nose. Dr. Phillips comes to see me every day after lunch to check on me and ask me how I'm feeling. He usually gets the same answer from me every day. Dr. Wilcox, who told me that I can call her Jennifer, is a doctor for my feelings. That's how she explained it to me when we first met. She said that being so sick can bring up all kinds of negative feelings, and she wanted me to feel comfortable sharing with her if there was anything I was struggling with. She never makes much headway with me. I'm always too tired after talking to Dr. Phillips to answer any of her questions. Sometimes I do answer her questions, and she gives me a peculiar look and jots things down in her notebook. I don't know what she does with that notebook after she leaves my room, but I think I'd like to read it someday. Everyone who cares for me wears a uniform. I guess it is mandatory for the agency that my husband hired them from. The only person who comes to see me who never wears a uniform is my friend, Allison. Allison always brings her dog, Fig, who is a huge auburn-colored golden retriever. The first time I met Allison and Fig, I could tell Allison was a little apprehensive. She held Fig's leash tightly in her fist, though you wouldn't guess it from how the leash dangled with plenty of slack. But I noticed these things. Allison said something under her breath to one of my attendants as Fig approached me in my chair. The dog walked right up to me and placed her giant, blocky head right in my lap, looking up at me with her soft brown eyes. I lifted a hand and gently patted her head, and then scratched behind her ears, and she closed her eyes and let the full weight of her head settle against my leg. I saw Allison's grip on the leash relax, and I heard her quietly mutter, "Figgy is a great judge of character," to my attendant, who shrugged his shoulders and then looked away. almost irritated. After that first meeting, Allison has brought Fig to visit me every week. If I'm in bed, Fig will jump up and lie beside me, warming me with her silken auburn fur. Allison will always pull up a chair and sit next to me, and she always makes small talk about the weather or tells me a funny story about what Fig has gotten up to since the last time we met. Allison even reaches out and holds my hand sometimes and gives me a knowing look. She once asked me why I'm sick, and I told her it was better for both of us if she didn't know. But that didn't scare her away. One day, that same attendant, who was there during my first meeting with Allison and Fig, pulled up a chair rather closer to me and Allison than he normally would, and opened up a newspaper to read. The big headline on the front read, "Father of children missing for 3 years petitions to have him officially declared dead." A sad story, to be sure. A picture of the father with his children, all beaming at the camera, took up most of the front page. My husband has to travel so much for work that he is rarely able to visit with me. When he does, he often meets with my doctors and they discuss things in hushed tones. I catch snippets as they speak. No progress, no new information, different medication. My husband has control over my treatment because my illness often makes me too tired and disoriented to be able to consent to any changes. My husband has learned only to come visit me before 5 p.m. because there have been one too many visits after dinner when they come into my room to see me and something awful has come over me and I have attacked him, lunged out of my bed or my wheelchair with my hands outstretched, clawing for his throat and eyes as my attendant springs into action to restrain me. Whenever this has happened, my husband refuses to meet my eyes with his afraid to look at me and acknowledge the real reason why I want to kill him. A reason only he and I will ever know. You see, my morning medications really start to wear off after dinner, and I can't have my evening doses until 7 p.m. As the afternoon turns to evening, I feel my symptoms start come back. My vision, blurry and unfocused during the day, becomes sharper. The golden light that bathes everything darkens and becomes cold and blue, throwing everything into harsh relief and making my surroundings feel unwelcoming and clinical. My head, so foggy and sluggish all day, begins to clear and my memories start to come back. I see my attendants for what they really are, employees begrudgingly tasked with watching over me, rather than dedicated and compassionate caregivers. The worst, though, is my children. When they come to visit me after dinner, they no longer look happy and angelic and full of life and laughter. They no longer look the way I want to remember them. Instead, they look the way I am forced to remember them. Jocelyn's scalp is half ripped away from her skull, and her left eye is missing. Blood stains her nose and mouth, and she has thick purple bruising around her neck. Her head hangs at an odd angle, and her legs can only shuffle her forward as she tries to walk on compound fractures with shards of bone piercing her skin. The entire left side of Simon's head has been completely caved in, and he spits and sputters bubbles of blood as he struggles to draw in ragged breaths. His rib cage is crushed and splintered, and his lungs flap uselessly against his chest wall. And Evelyn, my poor, sweet baby girl, too young to even understand what was happening to her. Her eyes are black, filled completely with dead blood. Her tongue is huge and purple and protrudes from her mouth. She, too, bears thick bruising around her neck, although this is barely noticeable due to the fact that she now carries her head in her tiny little hands because it was ripped completely from her shoulders. They all come to me and stare at me, crying, "Why, Mama?" It used to drive me mad at first, and more often than not when they showed up to haunt me, I would claw so deeply in my arms as I screamed in anguish that I ended up bound in my bed in padded restraints while a nurse administered an injection to put me to sleep. Now, I just cry silently. I don't look away, because my babies deserve to be seen, but my heart shatters into a million pieces over and over again every night when they come to remind me of what I've done. A trucker found me on the side of the highway 3 years ago, covered in blood, some of it mine, some of it not, at the emergency room. They tried to get me to tell them what happened to me, but I couldn't. All I could do was scream as I pictured my babies the way I left them before I escaped into the woods. I think I hoped to get lost and die of exposure out there, but instead I stumbled out onto the roadway and nearly got hit by a truck. Dying that way would have been better than I deserved. When the police showed up to question me, the emergency room staff were confused, but then the detective explained. My husband had reported the children and me missing that morning after waking up to find the house empty. He told the police that I hadn't been well lately, hadn't been taking my medications, and he was worried that I may have harmed the children. The police knew as much when they saw me on that gurney, covered in my children's blood, and I couldn't speak to tell them what had happened. They finally sedated me to get me to stop screaming, and when I woke up, I was handcuffed to the bed rail, and a cop sat in the corner of my room, staring me down. They took me to court, but I was found to be incompetent to stand trial. The state psychologist who examined me determined that I had entered a catatonic state and that, in my stupor, I was incapable of understanding the charges being brought against me. And that's how I ended up here at Willow Grove, the highest security forensic psychiatric hospital in the state, imprisoned amongst others deemed incompetent to stand trial like me, or those who were found not criminally responsible, which is a technical term for not guilty by reason of insanity. And here I've stayed for the past 3 years, under a constant fog of antipsychotics and benzodiazepines, unable to tell anyone what really happened the night that I was found, unable to tell anyone the real reason I have attacked my husband so many times, the reason that only he and I will ever know, because it wasn't me who hurt my precious babies at night in the woods. Story 5. I am being followed. I always have been followed, not by one which could be called monstrous by any means. At least that's my hope. The sidewalk feels like a never-ending flood of humans, and I was only focused on one. If it were grotesque, then someone would stop to scream or to gawk. The rest of humanity would show some semblance of seeing this entity. I would hear the hitting of cars and gunshots ringing from squad cars. No, I am being followed by someone so close to being human. It irks me. They carry my own face. The orange-hued hand halted my journey. My own hands lazily gripped the weathered handle of my well-worn umbrella. Rain beat the ground in an almost beautiful pattern. Each drop splattered to the ground to crash into another. The glossy ground is covered by the clear liquid. No, it was not clear. It was filled with the colors of passers-by. There's a blurred sense of reality reflected in each drizzle. My own vibrate polka dot umbrellas, colors mixed within the transposed space. I find myself staring into such a puddle until I catch a glimpse of my mirror. The splashing of feet distorts the image, but I know it's there. My eyes divert from the beauty back to the walking man sign. I cannot stop. It doesn't stop. However, it is always there. It's not an exact mimic of me. In fact, it has taken many forms of myself throughout my life. Each time there's a feature that feels so singular that I hold dear. Some days it is the same shirt. Other days it is the same hair clip. One day it was my own fingernails. Today it took my face. It was almost as if I was looking at a twin, but I can't look at it. I can only find a single tinge in the wet rain. I catch glimpses of it. Glimpses found in the mirroring rain or when I look over my shoulder. While it may seem unnoticeable, there's little things to your own face that make up you. The only reason I know that it took my face today was the smile lines and scars from a bump in my childhood over my left eyebrow. I only saw it for a second, but knew that it was following me. There were some days that I would think I had some reprieve with this entity. There were days where I couldn't feel anyone's eyes on me. It became a dull feeling, almost like silence is in a filled room. I've gotten over the feeling of being followed many, many years ago. It's my shadow. I hold it dearly. Yet, it sends prickles down my spine at every contact. They never pass me. If I am still, so are they? I ride in a car. There are only a few cars down in the car seat of a young child. It is an empty husk of someone, and I know it is following me. Today has been one of the most demanding of the entity. It is followed so closely that I feel my umbrella brushing against it. A hand could wrap itself around my throat and choke each desperate scream for it to leave me alone. All would be meaningless. It has no purpose but to follow me. I am being followed. I wish I knew what it was and why it was following me. Story 6. It runs beside my car, staring at me. I live in a small town in western Colorado. There's a rule every single person follows here. Our curfew. The live ones do at least. May, August curfew, 9 p.m. September, April curfew, 6 p.m. For the longest time, I thought it was dumb. Stores, bars, and even gas stations were closed before the curfew. So, it's not like there were a lot of reasons to stay out that late anyway. Who was enforcing it? I'm not entirely sure. Cop cars would patrol the streets 30 minutes prior to the curfew, offering rides home to anybody who, otherwise, wouldn't make it home in time. But they, too, were home before the curfew was fully in effect. Regretfully, it's not dumb. It actually makes a lot of sense. I just wish I had believed someone when they told me why the curfew was enforced. I moved here a few years ago to get a change of pace. I edit videos for a big YouTuber, and most of my time is spent holed up in my house. So location isn't wholly important for my work as long as I have a decent Wi-Fi connection. I saw a listing for a house up here and always love the mountains, so I thought why not? I won't disclose specifically where I live for the sake of idiots on the internet stalking me, but it's really pretty here. Large, evergreen pine trees stretch across the mountains and loom stoically over the edge of cliff faces as you traverse the winding roads, desperately dodging whitetail, deer, crossing the road. Occasionally, you'll find a cluster of aspen trees with pale green leaves that shimmer like sequins in the wind. The only sign of fall is the temperature dropping and the aspens changing from their calming green to fierce tones of red, yellow, and orange, like a fire had been set upon them with the sole intention of dyeing the leaves. Every so often, you'll even see a black bear rummaging for snacks among the rich foliage, or hear the petrifying wail of an elk late at night. So when I learned about the strict curfew, the pros far outweighed the cons. I made friends with a guy about my age who lived down the road from me pretty quickly after moving in. We met at one of 2 bars in town and found out that we liked a lot of the same video games. Within a few weeks, it became almost a ritual to meet up on the weekends, smoke a joint, and play whatever new indie party game had dropped in the Steam store. On one of those nights, we were working to a level of Unrailed, and I decided to ask him about the strict curfew. Hey, Calvin. His name was Calvin. Calvin kept his eyes on the screen, but responded with a slightly delayed after his brain finally logged that I was talking to him. What's up with everyone needing to be inside their homes so early at night? Calvin took some time to respond. 1/3 focus on the game, 1/3 considered my question, 1/3 drifting towards cloud 9. Finally, he said, honestly, man, I don't know. There's probably a reason. Maybe it has to do with all the sudden disappearances that happened, 10 years ago or something. Calvin then dug his hand into a bowl of Doritos sitting between us, shoving them into his mouth. No, that makes sense. Probably just to protect people from wildlife. I postulated. Calvin, still chewing, nodded his head, agreeing with my theory. It made sense, so I stuck to it. There wasn't really much else to consider. It'd be weird if there was some eldritch horror haunting the mountains looking for any poor soul too clueless to know not to be out late at night. Over the next year or so, only a few people went missing, so my theory was only further confirmed by this. I assumed that they were out too late at night, happened upon a bear, and got mauled to death. Until Calvin came bursting into my house one day. Calvin shouted my name as loudly as he could. Mark! We were wrong. Mark! I was still in my room, getting clothes on before heading to my office to work, but rushed out in only my pants when I heard the panicked tone in his words. Wrong about what? I said, rifling through conversations we'd had that would incite this kind of reaction to being wrong. We were wrong about the bears. Calvin said in an exhale, now looking at him. His eyes were bloodshot and his hands were shaking. He looked like he had seen something that had really spooked him, and he hadn't slept all night because of it. Still confused, I just said, bears? Yes, bears. Dog. I don't know what you mean by bears. Tay-Tay's the fucking curfew. It's not bears attacking people. When it gets dark. I nodded my head, feigning understanding. He looked really freaked out, and I didn't want to make him think I didn't believe him. Calvin looked out my window towards the direction of his house, closed the curtains, and sat himself down on my couch, taking a few deep breaths to calm himself down, but they clearly weren't working. I ran upstairs to grab a shirt before coming back down and sitting across from him, hoping he had enough time to collect himself and tell me what it was. Calvin began, "I took an edible last night and got super fucking hungry for specifically a chocolate-coated payday, but I didn't realize that it was already past curfew." As soon as he mentioned him being high, I didn't really give much credence to everything he told me, but I thought it important to at least let him tell me the rest of his tale. When I got there, that was when I realized the store was already closed and it was past curfew. But as I started to drive back, Calvin's eyes, which were originally trained on me as he spoke, darted around nervously. He even peeked out my window again. Calvin slowly turned back to look at me, and as if there was gravity to this next sentence, he added a hissing, whispery tone to his voice. Something followed me all the way home. The whole time Calvin regaled me with his story, the corners of my lips were fighting to stay down. With his final sentence, I let out a chuckle, and I couldn't keep it together anymore. I burst out laughing. "It's not funny, Mark," Calvin pleaded, disheartened by my disbelief in him. "This actually happened." "Calvin, buddy," I said, as chuckles leaked through speech. "You were way higher than you thought you were last night. What were you doing driving high?" Calvin, who originally had been very visibly upset, began to realize how stupid he sounded and began to laugh with me. "Okay, yeah, but I swear I saw something." "Brother, you were baked," I responded. It was probably just tree branches or something. Scariest tree branches I've ever seen. Calvin added before we both burst into peals of laughter over Calvin's story. We laughed for a while. Calvin laughed exceptionally hard because of how tired he was. Once we got over ourselves, I let him crash on my couch, letting him catch up on sleep, and then he could walk home after he was well rested. That was the last time I ever saw Calvin. The police came to my house after his place of work had reported that he hadn't come in for several days and wasn't answering his phone. They informed me that I was the last person to see him before he disappeared, but I didn't have much information for them. The day he crashed on my couch, I was in my office late into the night. I went out on my porch for a break from the screen and a cigarette at 10 p.m., but Calvin was already gone at that point, so I assumed he had just gone home. I wasn't particularly close to Calvin. We spent a lot of time on weekends, but beyond that, we didn't know much about each other's personal lives. I told the police about our last conversation together and the thing that he claimed had followed him home that night. They noted something, but showed little reaction to whether that piece of information was important or not. The following weeks floated by. Whatever time I had, when I wasn't editing, was spent playing video games or watching TV. Calvin's story perpetually eating at my conscience. Had his eyes really not been playing tricks on him? Was something out there in the dark of night, following those who stayed out past curfew? The more I thought about it, the more it felt like a crappy goosebump story to scare kids into following the rules. I tried to shove the thought out of my mind and chalk the whole thing up as one big coincidence, but it never fully left the dark recesses of my mind. I drove to town occasionally to get groceries, but other than that, I rarely used my car to get places, which was probably why, after what happened to Calvin, I hadn't been paying enough attention to the gas gauge on my car. It was the middle of July, and I had just finished and sent out a video when I realized I had forgotten to go shopping earlier that day. I checked the time, 7:30, which should have been plenty of time to run to the store, grab some food, and head back home before the curfew started. I had done tons of runs like this before, and knew I had plenty of time to make it home. It was about 20 minutes for me to get to town, and 20 minutes back. As I pulled out of my driveway, I drove past Calvin's house. The lights were all off in his house, and his car sat in his driveway. Every time I passed it, it gave me an eerie feeling, as though the house sat waiting for him to return someday. The sun was low in the sky, casting fiery red beams across the rocky landscape into the towering pines. Fractal beams of light fought through the needles of the trees and splayed across the ground and onto my car as I neared town. I grabbed some bread, cheese slices, and butter, with plans for a grilled cheese while I played Paul Washington to unwind after the long day. Once I got back in my car, I made about 10 minutes back to my house when it finally sputtered to a stop. For the first time in a month, I looked at the gas gauge and swore, "Fuck this shit, man. I just want to go home." Pouting about how I need to be more aware of my car, I grabbed a jerrycan from the trunk of my car and started the long walk to the nearest gas station, which was all the way back in town, funnily enough, next door to the grocery store. The sun had already set, but I assumed the police would understand why I was walking around so late at night, hoping they'd even give me a ride back to my car. When I finally made it to a gas pump, the store owner was locking up, saying that I was his last customer, and should fill up and then head home as soon as possible. I thanked him for letting me know, and I filled the jerrycan as full as I could. It held enough gas that I could drive home, and then take it back to the gas station in the morning. I wasn't so lucky to see any officers patrolling near where I was as I filled up, and resigned to making the walk back myself, praying I didn't have any unfortunate meetings with the wildlife. The walk was long and boring. I used my phone flashlight to see where I was going, and watched time tick further and further past the curfew with nothing out of the ordinary happening. By the time I finally made it back to my car, I was just relieved to go home. It was only when I poured the gas into my tank and shut the cover when I started to hear the sound of hooves clopping. As it grew louder, I realized they were not the cloven hooves of deer, but bare feet slapping on the ground, running, growing louder, running towards me. I jumped in as fast as I could. I quickly started the car and accelerated with my pedal pressed to the floor of the car, no longer caring about the little gas I had put in my car. I'd walk the full way back to the gas station as long as I could get away from whatever was coming for me. My heart was practically beating out of my chest. The winding roads did not lend me the luxury of going fast. Unfortunately, I was experienced with a treacherous path, but driving full speed was a death sentence. I assumed I'd already put enough space between me and whatever was chasing me, but I wished with everything in me that I was just already home. My eyes were fixed on the road the whole time, too afraid to look behind me. Yet, as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was peering at me from the passenger window. With only a few minutes till I made it home, I glanced to my right and nearly veered my car off the road. It didn't react at all to my acknowledgement of it. It simply stared back, keeping pace with my car. Stare is an inadequate description of what exactly it was doing. It didn't have any eyes to stare with. There were simply two black spots on its white circle for a face, with one slightly large hole for its mouth. It seemed almost as if it wore a mask, but the spots were neither holes nor painted on. They blended like shadows into the white circle, which, in turn, blended into its thin and otherwise featureless body. The worst part, however, was how it moved. The thin road provided just enough space for two cars, so the thing was clambering beside me on the shoulder of that road, which was cluttered with rocks and the occasional small tree. These meant nothing to the thing. It clambered around, through, and between in an impossible manner, all of which was completely inaudible to me over the rumbling of my car's engine. It had stayed perfectly still the whole time, keeping its empty eyes trained on me, never moving an inch forward or back and never rotating, like a camera on the end of a gimbal. I would have driven the whole night, but while I was terrified of it, I was also acutely aware of how much gas I had in my car. So, regretfully, I resigned to pulling into my driveway, parking the car, making sure the doors were locked, and killing the engine. The thing stayed in my window the whole time. After several agonizing minutes of it staring at me, I saw the thing's head slowly retreat downwards. After it had fully disappeared from sight, it made a new noise. A deep, empty, sloshing noise, like liquid in a very large can. While it looking at me sent horrific chills in every direction along my spine. I hated even more that I couldn't see it, but I was completely petrified with fear. Thus I made no effort to see where it had gone. The hours were long. Fear caught in my throat the entire time. I felt like I would be trapped in my car forever, hearing that terrible slow sloshing from the horror outside my car. As the sun rose, the sloshing sound faded away. I waited many more hours before even attempting to peek through my car window to see if the thing was still there, but there was nothing. I opened the car door slowly, preparing to close it as soon as I saw a hint of movement, praying I could close it faster than it could grab me, but again there was nothing. I stumbled, exhausted, out of my car and into my house. Sleep was tearing at my eyes and body, and I wanted nothing more than to sleep forever now that the thing had finally left. I crashed into my bed and was asleep before my head even hit the pillow. As I awoke, the sun had fallen again. I slept through the entire day, and it had returned to night once more. The clock beside my bed read 9 o'clock. I rolled out of bed and decided that I should just edit for a little while, and then sleep some more. I walked toward my office and decided to look out my window facing the driveway. Some morbid curiosity pulled at me to see if everything I had experienced the night before was just a nightmare brought about by sleep deprivation and lack of socialization. My car remained in the place I had parked the night before. I made a mental note to remember to go to the gas station tomorrow, but the thought was cut short, and I felt my blood turn to ice. Curled up beneath my car, its thin body almost flat to ground, was a hollow, black gaze from a white face looking back at me. Story 7. My night at the Caraway house went wrong. The Caraway house was there long before I was born. I remember my grandfather telling me how he used to play ding-dong ditch. It was a badge of honor who could get the most swears from the irritated homeowners. Grandfather proudly showed off the scar he got from the pan thrown at his head. The old bungalow loomed over the town high on a hill. At night, its lit windows glowed like the eyes of a beast, watching over us with the patience of an immortal being. Ivy climbed its brick walls like a second skin. Trash dotted the overgrown lawn, beer cans and condoms. Every time I passed it, even from a distance, I could smell the place. The stale scent of mold carried on the wind. It was as if the place was rotting from the inside. An eyesore, my mother called it, and yet nothing was done about it. No one condemned it or did welfare checks on the aged owners. The Caraways had influenced, my parents said, whatever that meant. From a few glimpses I caught of them, I couldn't see how. Mr. Caraway, a squat man, more fat than sense, always walked around in a filthy wife-beater vest. Grease and coffee stains painted him like a pattern. Paired with cargo shorts that revealed pale, balloon-like legs, he looked, for lack of a better term, like an off-duty clown. Mrs. Caraway, on the other hand, was made from plastic. A Barbie doll left out in the sun for too long. Her wrinkly jowls were pulled back with Botox. Her gnashing teeth shined like porcelain. Looking at her just felt wrong, especially when she stood next to her husband, a funhouse mirror couple. Every weekend they came into town, Mr. Caraway touched everything in the display cases, leaving a trail of greasy handprints in his wake, while Mrs. Caraway shrieked her shrill laugh. The town agreed they were a nuisance, but nothing was done. Whether from fear or the supposed influence, I couldn't tell you. Then something happened. 2 months had passed. The couple hadn't been seen since. They were still in the house. Every night, thick black smoke billowed from the chimney, filling the dark sky like fog, permeating the air with an acrid, burnt smell. It clung to your clothes, burnt the hairs of your nostrils. People didn't care, as long as the couple no longer bothered them. The Caraway house was an old, dilapidated house, owned by a strange couple gone missing. So, why am I writing about it? Because I am going to break inside. Not by myself, of course. I have friends tagging along. Safety in numbers, as they say. Alvin, my next-door neighbor, was a squirrely, hyperactive kid raised on the iPad. He jumped when I mentioned going to the house, but insisted on filming it. Why? I asked, frowning at his cheap handheld camera. For YouTube, he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. We could be the next Sam and Colby. I scoffed, doubted. It sounded like a stupid idea to me, but I let him bring the camera, if only to keep him quiet. If he did upload to YouTube, I doubt it would get many views. He'd better not do that stupid Wojak face for the thumbnail. My other friend, Harris S., was, unfortunately, a wimp, no other way to say it, smaller than the rest of the kids in class, jumping at every sound and with yellow skin. It made him a prime target for bullies. Born with jaundice, it gave him skin like candle wax that, and his initials earned him the nickname Homer Simpson. Alvin still called him that, much to his chagrin. It wasn't as bad as the other nickname, fetal alcohol syndrome. Besides that, he was a good kid, went along with anything, even exploring a weird, scary house. I asked him if he truly was all right. He once admitted that the Carraways gave him night terrors. Harris nodded, his blonde hair flopping. "I'll be fine, it might cure me of my nightmares." I wasn't so sure about that. As we walked up the overgrown path, lined by thorny bushes, I could see Harris getting nervous. His waxy skin glowed with sweat. "Guys, I don't know," he muttered, the wind whipping away his words. "This seemed like a good idea during the day. Do we have to do this at night?" Alvin scoffed. "It isn't night yet." He pointed his camera up at the violet sky. Harris tootayed. "Whatever. It's going to be in a few minutes. And what if the old woman catches us?" "No chance. My brother said she was taken away," Alvin reassured. "When?" Alvin shrugged. "I don't know. He said she was stalking the streets, singing and chasing after cars." "Taken by who?" Alvin shrugged. "Police, ambulance, nut house, does it matter?" "I guess not." Harris wasn't convinced, biting down on his golden lip. I bumped shoulders with him. "Hey, try not to worry. If anything goes wrong, we'll protect you." I glanced at Alvin, currently doing 360 spins with his I stuck to the camera. "Well, I will, anyway." Harris offered a shaky nod, shuffling along with his hands clasped. I gave him another reassuring pat. Then Alvin dropped his clunky camera, followed by a torrent of swears. Harris jumped, frowning at their friend. They traipsed through the overgrown brush, snapping twigs and crushing beer cans underfoot, the only sound in the otherwise quiet night. Looking back, I should have noticed that it was too quiet. We reached the front door, bunched awkwardly on the doorstep. Alvin was closest, but instead of reaching for the handle, he just zoomed in and out with the camera. I sighed. Even Harris twitched with irritation. Maybe it's locked. The fear returned full force. Wordlessly, I grabbed the handle. It turned easily. Harris visibly deflated. The door swung open with an ear-splitting creak, revealing a wall of darkness. Alvin went first, camera ready, mouth hanging open, then me, pulling Harris along. We stepped over the dark threshold, straight into the maw of the beast. The moment I entered, the first thing that hit me was the smell. Grease. The stuffy air was thick with it. It was like the walls had absorbed the grease from 1,000 meals. The front door led them into the kitchen, the core of the greasy stench. The kitchen was a mess. The counters were piled high with dirty dishes, layered with crusty mold that was once food. Pots and pans congealed with fat, sticking out of stagnant dishwater. The peeling wallpaper revealed dark patches underneath. I peered closer with a grimace. Black mold. Finding a light switch, I flicked it, filling the air with the incessant buzz of fluorescent bulbs. It was like stepping into a 24-hour diner. Our footsteps stuck and unstuck to the floor like Velcro. The windows were decorated with handprints, like after the Carraways ate their fried food. They pressed their hands and faces to peer out the window. Alvin audibly cringed, sticking his camera into the grime. Harris stood in the middle of the tacky floor, hesitant to go further, but unwilling to run away. They really like fried food, Alvin noted, dipping a finger in the congealed fat. It left an indent up to his knuckle. "EW, don't touch it." Harris exclaimed. Alvin laughed. "Hey, Homer." He spun round, brandishing his gooped finger at Harris. Same shade. Harris puffed up with anger, stepping forward to shove him. I ignored them, nauseous from the stench. We left the kitchen, closing the door to hopefully cut off the smell. It didn't work. The cold hallway was dark. I thought it was from the lack of light, but no. The walls were plastered with black mold. Pulling my shirt over my nose, I gestured for the others to do the same. My father told me about black mold. If you breathe in even one spore, it would settle in your lungs and fester, killing the pink tissue and shrinking the lungs until you hacked up black muck. Harris had his shirt pulled up to his nose, leaving only his watery eyes darting around. I couldn't help thinking that his red shirt made him look more like Bart Simpson. Alvin had the camera close enough to the wall to scratch off dark flakes. I slapped him on the back. "Stop it, asshole," as they walked further down the contaminated hallway. careful not to breathe. Another sound joined the buzzing cacophony. It was like the crackle of an old TV. They passed a living room. Sat against the wall was an ancient cuboid TV, complete with crooked rabbit ears. It was on, but no one watched. The screen danced with fuzzy static. Background music to our antics. Alvin ran around, chirping and zooming in on everything. Look at the state of this couch. Plopped in the middle of the room was a red satin couch, dark and shiny from years of use. As I got closer, there was a definite person-shaped imprint. Mr. Carraway's fat body was forever embedded in the cushions, flattened by years of sweat and grease. Ew, Harris shouted, peering over Alvin's shoulder. I dare you to touch it, Homer. Alvin smirked. No way, are you crazy? I'll catch Ebola or something. Ah, come on, don't be a loser. How does not touching something gross make me a loser? I don't know. Ask your mother. Harris flushed. It only made his cheeks more golden. I sighed, walking away from the stupid argument. I walked around the room, looking at the pictures hanging on the walls. The Carraways throughout the years. The first was of a young couple, in old-timey wedding attire. The woman scowled out at him, the husband with his eyes closed, light reflecting off his shiny, bald head. Wait, bald? Mr. Carraway wasn't bald. He had disgusting, matted hair. Hair didn't just grow back, did it? In the second picture, Mrs. Carraway still scowled with a few lines around her, with her blonde husband hanging off her arm. No, that wasn't right either. Mr. Carraway had black hair. I didn't bother looking at the rest. Even at a glance, I saw there was a different man in each one. Jeez, Mrs. Carraway sure got around, huh? I turned to my friends, only to find them still bickering. Alvin pressuring Harris to touch the couch, shouting dough as he did. Harris just seethed, trembling with barely disguised anger. If I touch the stupid couch, then you have to stop calling me Homer Simpson, Harris told him. Alvin smirked. Yeah, sure, just do it. Harris took a hesitant step forward, like approaching a wild animal. His yellow fingers danced across the crusty couch. The plastic screech and material set my teeth on edge. Harris barely held back a whine. It's like touching a bald man's head. The mention of bald reminded me of what I found. Before I could reveal it, Alvin made another stupid joke. Bald like Homer? He laughed as Harris shot him a glare. Alvin walked away, still chuckling. I stuck out my foot, and Alvin went flying, him and the camera clattered to the floor. I shot Harris a thumbs up. Alvin grunted, face planting against the wall. He steadied himself with a hand, then jumped back like he was electrocuted. He yelped, "What the hell?" He touched the wall again, his bruised face twisting with confusion. This wall is freaky. Yeah, very funny. I muttered, gesturing for Harris to follow me. No. Seriously. Alvin scrabbled for his camera. Touch it. He reached for my hand. I slapped him away. Alvin, you're starting to piss me off. Starting to panic, Alvin grabbed Harris's hand and pressed it against the wall. God damn it. Alvin, I dash, Harris frowned, feeling up the wall. His eyes widened. Ugh. He turned to me. The wall is soft. Soft. The living room walls were plastered with old newspapers. The few bare spots were a sickly shade of pink, modeled with the same mold as a hallway. Alvin raised his camera, pressing a finger to the wall again. There was some give to the wall, even squished under his touch. God, how does that even happen? His finger came away shiny. The wall feels like it's about to crumble. I rolled my eyes. It's the mold. It must be all over the place, Harris said, rubbing his hand on his jeans. Alvin whipped his camera from the wall to Harris's yellowed finger. We better watch the house doesn't fall around us, he sniffed his hand, frowning. The TV buzzed away. The layer of dust added to the sour, damp smell. Just as I was about to suggest we leave, my ears picked up another sound. Someone's coming. I hissed. Footsteps were crunching up the path. I heard a key entering the lock. We didn't have enough time to run. We were going to have to hide. Scatter. Alvin ran first, still clutching his stupid camera. Harris didn't move, rigid with fear. I had to drag him along by his sleeve. I heard Alvin thundering up the stairs. That idiot was going to get caught. I couldn't even call out to him. Harris found a closet opposite the stairs. We dove inside just as the door swung open. The person lumbered in, their gait uneven. When we got our breathing under control, I cautiously opened the closet door just enough to peer out. The closet was humid. Already sweat dripped down my back. Even more when she came into view. Mrs. Carroway. She was back. Alvin said she was gone, Harris hissed. Sounding close to tears, I nudged him to keep quiet. I had never been this close to her. The stink of cigarettes and bacon overpowered the sour dampness. She was old, decrepit. Whatever Botox she had long faded as her face swam with wrinkles. Her cheeks dangled like the jowls of a dog. Her artificial red hair curled into a perm, dye staining her pale forehead, clashing with the lipstick staining her lips. She wore a neon purple windbreaker suit that swished with every movement. Harris gripped my arm, wetting my sleeve with his clammy hand. Mrs. Carroway ascended the stairs at a snail's pace, taking each step like it was a Herculean effort. Her red-clawed hand gripped the banister, the wood creaked. Halfway up, she paused for breath, just as a thud came from upstairs. Mrs. Carroway tilted her head. I motioned for Harris to hold his breath. Mrs. Carroway stood still, hunched over like a hunchback. As I watched her, something flashed in her milky eyes, something that scared me, that, paired with a long pink tongue darting out to wet her lips, smearing the lipstick even more, made me think of a hungry animal. I felt Harris's hand slip from mine. He must have been terrified. Mrs. Carroway straightened up, her back cracking like a gunshot. Then, with speed that belied her age, the old woman rushed up the stairs. Stranger still, she ran up on all fours, her hands slapping the wood. I stared, mouth open, long after she crawled out of sight. After a moment of silence, I poked my head out of the damn closet. "We need to get out of here," I hissed. Harris nodded, a quick spasm of fear. We hurried quickly and quietly back to the kitchen. The door had been locked. Damn it! Another heavy thud from upstairs made them jump. Shit! Alvin's still upstairs. Harris shivered, his golden skin iridescent with fierce sweat. Harris wouldn't last much longer without breaking down. We had to be careful if we had to get out. "Harris, I know you're scared, but I need you to go and find another exit." Harris looked at me with wide eyes, looking like I just condemned him to death. I was quick to reassure him. "You just need to be quiet and go back to the living room. I have to find Alvin, then I'll find you and we'll get out of here together." "Okay." Harris, though he trembled with fear, nodded. I patted his shoulder, ignoring the dampness of his shirt. With that, he hurried off, disappearing into the gloom. Then it was just me. As a de facto leader, it was my responsibility to get everyone out of here. I would not fail. As I stopped at the first step, I would be lying if I said I didn't hesitate. The old woman could be waiting just round the corner, ready to grab me, but I had to save my stupid friend. I was going to lord it over him. The bare wooden steps were hollow, but didn't creak, thankfully. As the landing came into view, the dim, flickering lights made it look like it was illuminated by candles. The stink of grease was at its strongest up here. The mold had spread to the upper floor. There were too many rooms, too many for Alvin to hide, and the old woman. I listened but couldn't hear her awkward steps. A trail of yellow led its way into the bedroom. Did the couple just carry buckets of grease into the bed? Something stopped me in my tracks, my feet rooted to the floor. There, in the middle of the stained floor, was a battered camera. Alvin's camera. I had to warn Harris, against my better judgment. I snuck back down the stairs, hissing his name. I checked the kitchen first. The yellow walls bright enough to burn my eyes. Wait, yellow. The kitchen walls shone as if covered in fresh grease. Mrs. Carroway went straight upstairs. The walls, originally covered in newspaper, squished under my touch. The mold was gone, replaced with new leathery texture. The soft, yellow texture felt clammy, like sweaty skin. I had to feel my way out of the kitchen, feeling nauseous for some reason. I ducked my head into each stinking room, but he was nowhere to be found. Maybe Harris had already escaped? I couldn't blame him. I crossed my fingers and headed back up the stairs. Alvin's camera lay on the floor, untouched. A shuffling from the bedroom made me jump. Fabric shifted. Someone getting into bed. If I was quiet and got to the others before they did anything, we could escape. Where could they be? Alvin dropped in a hurry. It was still running. I rewound the camera. Its high-pitched whine made me look over my shoulder. The footage was just jumbled scenes at first, telling me that Alvin was running and forgot to turn off the camera. I watched it shake left and right, punctuated by Alvin's heavy breathing. I watched him try to find a hiding place, but each room he ducked into was weirder than the last. The yellow and mold were normal compared to these. The first room was dark. As the camera's light glinted against the walls, they glistened. The walls were wet, covered in thick, dark sludge. It dripped from the ceiling in thick strands. It was like the room had been submerged underwater. The second room was another bedroom. Plastic wrap covered the furniture. Even the bed. Piled high on the surfaces were rolls of stained bandages, dripping something pink onto the floor. I felt like I could smell it through the camera. Alvin's exclamation rang out from the camera's tinny speakers. As the camera shifted, a pair of bare feet came into view, bony and wrinkled, just like a scene from a found footage movie. The camera swung round, and Mrs. Carroway's face filled the screen. Her sunken, milky eyes glared, staring at me through the camera. With a sound like a plunger unsticking from a blocked toilet, Alvin was gone. The camera fell to the floor with a thud. The sound from earlier, from the new crooked angle. I saw Mrs. Carroway grab Alvin by the scruff of the neck, lifting him against the wall. Alvin's face twisted in fear, his mouth open in a silent scream, impossibly wide, until I thought the skin of his lips would split. I waited for Alvin to push the old woman away. It should have been so easy, but Alvin didn't move. His eyes darted frantically. Twin orbs spasmed me in the skull. What was going on? Movement caught my eye. I peered in closer. Something about Alvin's bare arms disturbed me. The skin seemed to be getting redder. He twisted his head, straining his neck until the tendons bulged. His body refused to follow. With a sound like Velcro unsticking, Alvin lifted his arm. His skin remained behind, like a flesh-colored sleeve, degloved, gooey like melted bubblegum. His exposed muscles twitched and pulsed, red, wet, and shiny. The skin of his arms fused to the wall, slowly sinking into the plaster, like sweaty skin stuck to a leather couch. His shed skin was gone, absorbed into the wall, and it was taking the rest of him. The wall was absorbing him. It was soft, malleable. He sank through like it was made from wet tissue. The skin was sucked from his body, stretching out to paint the wall. Pinks and reds mixed with the rotted wallpaper. The vivid colors burned my eyes. Alvin didn't scream. He didn't make a sound as he was painfully consumed, swallowed up by the house. I saw all of this through the camera. I saw Mrs. Carroway run a bony hand along the quivering pink wall, licking her lips as she did. She bent down, picked up the scattered clothes, and disappeared into her bedroom. The camera shook, almost falling from my trembling hands. What the hell did I just watch? As I struggled to comprehend what just happened, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I was being watched. Looking up, the camera slipped from my hands. There, staring out at me from the black void of the room, was Mrs. Carroway. Her head floated in the darkness like a grim specter. Her mouth spread open in a wet, toothless smile. Spit dribbled as she smacked her lips. Something radiated from the woman, like a stench. Something that my body sensed before I realized what it was. Hunger. She reached out, quick as a flash, bony fingers latching onto my neck. Her touch was boiling hot, searing my skin. She pulled me in close, faced a slimy face, spitting as her pink tongue curled out and ran along my face. She was tasting me. Her tongue writhed like a dying fish. Her breath was acrid, hot, my vision filled with her gnashing gums. Somehow, my panic kicking made contact with her withered body. Her grip loosened. I pushed the witch away. She collided against the wall, knocking over a table in the process. I didn't waste a chance. I ran down the stairs, taking 3 at a time. I didn't bother with the door. I just kicked out a window. The glass sliced at my skin. Warm blood trickled down my arms. I didn't care. I only cared about getting out. Finally out. I collapsed onto the soft grass, the cool night air sobering yet overwhelming my heightened senses. My body broke into violent tremors as a scream built up in my throat. It tore its way out, wrenching my throat as it did. Feeling lighter, I got up on trembling legs and ran. My gait as awkward as a newborn deer. I glanced back only once. There at the shattered window was the figure of Mrs. Carroway, staring after me, wide-eyed, still smacking her red lips. I didn't dare look back again. No one believed my story at first. They couldn't disprove it when Harris and Alvin were declared missing. When the police finally went inside to investigate, they came running back out, spewing their guts. My parents refused to tell me anything. All they said was that Harris and Alvin could rest in peace. That didn't comfort me. The Carroway house was soon spoken with the same reverence as Ed Gaines' house. Human flesh was found in the walls, bones in the bed and furniture. Apparently, they found Mr. Carroway in one of the bedrooms, or what was left of him. I heard a rumor that his body was so deteriorated that they had to take in the whole bed as evidence. They couldn't separate him. The greasy smell made so much more sense. Mrs. Carroway was taken away by the police, still smiling that dripping smile. Even as she was pushed into the cop car, the adult said I hallucinated the entire thing, the house eating my friends. It took years of therapy. I came to accept that fact. But if it was a hallucination, then what the hell was on that camera? The camera was never found. Story 8. I haven't heard from my colleague in a couple of days. It was a fairly quiet drive out to the coordinates we were given to check out. Flynn and I had fairly different music tastes, and as a sort of truce to not have to battle it out between his weird East Coast indie punk and my 2010s white girl party music, we had elected to ride either in silence or listen to a podcast, though neither of us had prepared a podcast before driving, and there was no way either of us would get the signal to play it there in the woods. What's up with this place again? Flynn asked, flipping through his personal location notes. I'm not sure the exacts, I replied. Amy just said something about a lot of the deer and such avoiding this area for some reason. Wants us to check it out. Couldn't it just be a bear or something? He said, softly shaking his head. I couldn't blame his annoyance. It was Christmas week after all, and we were supposed to be resting at home. I do field ecology work, and Flynn is one of the fire watchers who's out of rotation this season. He had only gotten back home to his family a few weeks before and was called back in for this the day before. I myself was getting ready to leave for out of state when Amy called me. It might be, but Amy is worried over every little thing. Best to say to her lest we have even more work to do in January. I said back, what you think it is? A CWD outbreak or something? Deer are fucking scared of everything. A tree could fall in there last month, and they would still be steering clear of it. He rubbed his temples as he spoke. Flynn was normally amicable and excited by forest work, but his anger was palpable. I felt the weight of having to be that one to keep up morale for once. I don't know, man. Let's just get in there, look around. Tell Amy there's nothing there. Then we can leave and go back to our families for the rest of the month. I tried to hide how annoyed I was as well, but I came to realize just how negative I was sounding as well. Whatever, he said back, taking out an old Game Boy Advance and playing a random game he pulled from his bag. We sat in silence the rest of the drive to where the Jeep couldn't go any further, and we'd have to walk the rest of the way. Despite his annoyance, Flynn always loves a hike. I could tell getting to go on a trail was peeking through his moody mask as he sighed. Let's get this over with. Trading the map/compass and the field notes between each other every 10 or so minutes. We reached the general location in about an hour and a half. It was mostly a normal stretch of untrailed forest, except for a small rock outcropping that sat dead center on our given coordinates. So we did some circles around it. We didn't find anything particular enough to know for a report, but there were some interesting looking bushes and saplings around. Looking at them made me think of laying a trail this way for anyone else who want to see them, and Flynn seemed to share my interest. There were a couple of shrubs that, instead of being singular balls of branches and leaves, stood on foreroots that led up from the ground into a normal grouping of shrubbery, most only the size of 2 fists. There were also similar looking ones that had the same layout, but were slightly larger, sapling size, with a shrub mass replaced with thicker wood and the roots about the thickness of 2 fingers. There were several of each type. I assumed at that point that they were normal plants that had all grown over something, that something now disappearing, and leaving the plants behind, grown into this shape. I thought my mental question had been answered when I looked over the rock formation and saw a small bit of rubble at the bottom. Looking above it, I saw a chamber that the falling rocks had left. The chamber was about big enough to hold a person. It seemed we had found our answer. Look at that. Looks like the rocks shifted and it caused a mini slide. The sound must have scared the deer. So now they're steering clear of the area. I said, also write an area down in my field notes. Shame we've never been out here, Flynn said to both me and me, without looking at my discovery. These growth formations are pretty shit. My neck snapped to look at Flynn. He had already begun going to suck the cut. He had gotten on his index finger, leading into the center of his palm. Piece of shit cut me, he said under his breath. Flynn was known to be reckless in the field, always falling, getting bitten, or being cut. He almost drowned one time because he slipped and hit his head sliding down a stream and landed in a waist-deep pond, knocked out. Amy was there to pull him out, thankfully. Let me grab something for it, I said, taking my bag off my back, taking out a small white box. The box was a first aid kit we were supposed to carry everywhere and was labeled as such, though the first had been covered in masking tape and written on, making it say Flynn Aid Kit. A joke one of our colleagues had done all the first aid kits in April that none of us bothered to peel off. I grabbed a bottle of disinfectant spray and a small bit of gauze and cotton to dress the wound. I can do it myself, Robin, Flynn said. I was already spraying the cut. You're slow and it's cold as hell. The faster we can call Amy and get out here, the faster I can be warm till the new year. I didn't even look at his face while he talked, fully dressing the cut in about 45 seconds. As we got up to leave, I accidentally kicked one of the shrubs, ripping out of the ground and landing about 5 feet from me. Flynn and I looked at each other, then at it. I decided it was interesting enough to bring back and pot. So I carefully slid it into my bag, and we got back on the trail. Getting back to the Jeep, we called Amy, gave her a fair helping of grievance for making us come out when we were supposed to be off, then let her know it was nothing to worry about, and it was just a mini rock slide. Flynn left as soon as we got back to the main research cabin. But I still had a day's worth of packing and now cleaning to do since I had to stay in the cabin a day longer than expected. I would have been gone the next day, but apparently some snow washed out a road farther up during the night, and I was stuck at the cabin until someone could come get me in a better off-roading car than my 2007 Toyota Corolla. I had decided to waste my time potting the plant in my bag, distracted myself for an hour as I got it ready. In the middle of my work, I got a text from Flynn. Hey man, I just got in late last night and woke up with a fever. Are you feeling alright? It read simply, I'm alright. You probably just caught something being out in the cold. I texted back. KK, just checking in. Merry Christmas, Robin. The wife says hi. He sent a picture with him, his wife, and his 2 children waving at the camera. Normally, I'd stop by on Christmas Day for dinner, but at the rate it was going, I wasn't sure if I'd be in civilization before I had to go back after New Year's. I got the thing fully planted in a large pot and had it in the common area, watching DVDs on the TV to pass the time, falling asleep after my second rewatch of Home Alone. I woke up around noon the next day, made myself some oatmeal and fruit, and sat down to continue my slow binge of every Christmas movie anyone has left in this cabin over the years of it being there before checking my phone, not expecting anything, but seeing another text from Flynn. Hey! Texting again, fever is still pretty bad, feeling like death warmed over. Plus now my scalp is itchy. Sounds like any plant sickness you know of? It said. Nothing I know of. Probably dirt and sand and shit from the woods you haven't fully washed off yet. I replied, did you manage to pot that shrub we got? He said back, yeah, I did. I sent a picture of it sitting next to the couch. Sick. Anyway, sorry to bother you. Merry Christmas again, he texted. You too, Flynn. I put the phone down and just kind of zoned out for a while, out of sheer boredom. I snapped myself out of my daze, stayed around an hour later, and started reading through a lot of field manuals around and generally wasting time. I came back to the common room, having thoroughly exhausted the far from expansive library of field guides, ranger diaries, and pamphlets lying around the building. deciding to take a further gander at my plant. I noticed a small sprig off to the side of it. On the ground was a small twig, almost too small to see. Despite its size, it seemed fully formed, even a tiny leaf that dotted it that looked similar to the plant's. I was caught out of interest by another text, this time from Amy. "Has Flynn been texting you about this cold he has too?" It read. "Yeah, every couple of hours he's telling me about a new symptom like he's got the plague or something." I said back, "I told him to keep his shit to you and himself. I have anxiety about my own self enough. I don't need him giving me something new to watch out for." I could hear the exasperation in her voice. "Well, thanks for giving me a break then, Amy." I texted back, then put my phone down. I momentarily found quiet until another text came through, now from Flynn. "Just got chewed out by Amy, but is it normal for my teeth to feel weird during a cold? Feels like I haven't gotten sick in years." I was confused at his words. Define weird. His texting icon lit up and went down a couple of times over the next 5 minutes, like he was thinking of what to say next. I don't know, like tingly. You know the feeling when your adult teeth would push out your baby teeth, and it'd feel like an itch in your gum you couldn't reach? Kind of like that. I thought a moment. "You might have a sinus infection." I said simply, "Makes sense." That had explained the pressure behind my eyes as well. I looked at my phone, shocked for a few moments. "What do you mean by pressure behind your eyes?" He began texting back. "You know, like a pushing feeling, but sinus pressure would definitely do that too, so I'm not worried anymore." "Whatever you say." I texted back, turning off my phone to fully rest my brain. I numbed myself for a few more hours before going back to sleep and waking up later into the next morning. Turning my phone back on to see a bunch of missed calls from Flynn and several texts. The pressure is getting stronger. I'm not sure what's going on. My wife didn't get a fever, but she's saying she has a teeth thing too. Feel bad for giving it to her, but just happy is contagious like a normal cold. Haha. Kid just woke up with a fever. There goes my fun. I'm starting to get a splitting headache. Shit sucks. "Hey, Robin? I think something is wrong." "Robin? Hello? Robin, please answer. I think something is really wrong. I'm feeling awful." I texted back over and over again, even called him, his house, his wife. Nothing picked up or answered, and my texts were left delivered. It sat like that all day, nothing went through, and I was worried sick. So I decided to call Amy. "Have you heard from Flynn?" I asked. "Not since I told him to stop talking to me about his cold. Why?" She said back, "He just sent me a bunch of texts and called me while I was asleep, and now he isn't answering. The road is still washed out, so I can't get out to him. Could you?" "No can do. I'm still in the tower. Can't leave for another few weeks. You'll have to wait till they fix it. I heard something about it being done tomorrow." "Well, at least I'll be in time for Christmas to go see him. I'm sure he's just at a doctor or doing holiday prep or something." I lied to myself to steal my nerves. "Sure, I have a bit of smoke I have to go check out. Text you when I make it back to the tower." She left with that. Not say anything more. I paced anxiously around for an hour or so before looking back down at the plant. Those sprigs. There were more of them, dozens that surrounded the plant. I gently swept them to the side until something caught my eye. For a moment, I thought one was twitching, almost like a dead or dying fly. But my vision corrected itself, and yep, just a sprig. I occupied myself with that almost enough not to hear the knocking on the door that startled me. Not expecting it. Hoping it was Flynn come get me or maybe Amy, I opened it. Only to see a man I didn't know in a high-vis vest and a white hard hat. "Hey, I heard you were the only one out here." He looked at me disinterestedly. "Yeah, that'd be me," I said, tense. "Well, we probably aren't going to be able to stabilize the road for another week because of Christmas being tomorrow, but we cut a little road next to it if you want to guide you through, so you can leave." He picked at his stubble while he spoke. "Yeah, that sounds great actually." I quickly ran inside to grab my last pack of things to stuff into my car, taking a last look at the shrub before leaving. A next sprig lying on the ground, dark than the others, but ignoring it and getting in my car. It took about 20 minutes of leading to get to the cleared path, and I carefully threaded through it onto Main Road, waving to the kind worker as I drove off, heading into the 2 to 3 hour drive to Flynn's house to check on him. I tried calling multiple times as I went every 20 minutes, but nothing went through, and anxiety and worry filled me as I got up his driveway. His house is tucked a bit into the woods, so I only actually say it once I was entirely up the mile-long driveway. I got to the door and knocked. No answer. Knocking again, once again, no answer. It was an eerie silence. Nothing was going on in the house, which was strange for an active family. I checked their carport, and both of the family's cars were just sitting there like they hadn't moved in a week. Deciding something was wrong, I went to their back door, which was mostly made of old, thin glass panes that I easily smashed and opened from the inside. I walked into the house. The air was still and dank like a greenhouse, making my way through the mudroom in the back to the kitchen. The wet wood smell got stronger as I went through the empty kitchen into the dining room, where I stood confused in the doorway for a moment. A massive wood sat at the head of the table like old growth, but sitting still, top going no higher than my chest, with branches that extended into the table. My confusion left as I saw how a fork was placed into one of the branches, a branch that was darker than the rest, like it was years older, and a crack at the very end like a deep gash flint. Calming myself, I went further into the house. Sat in front of the living room TV was another mass, smaller. I sat still, almost in a ball shape, with 4 branches, 2 that formed a loop touching the ground, and 2 more that connected in a round, small, separate mass facing the TV that was cracked and static Y. I moved further in, getting to Flynn in his wife's bedroom. A third mass, smaller than the first but larger than the second, lay long on the bed, a noticeably lighter color than the other 2. I flinched as I heard something like labored breathing outside the room, running to where the children's bedrooms were. Seeing Flynn's youngest on the bed, writhing. "Hey, Donnie, it's okay. It's okay. I got you. We're going to the hospital. It's okay." I scooped him up, pulling his head into my chest so he wouldn't see the rest of the house, hoping to spare him from that at least. Where are my mommy and daddy? I haven't seen them since yesterday. I couldn't leave my bed. He was openly crying into my shirt as I carried him. "They're okay. Everything is going to work out, all right?" I knew they were gone. I just wanted to save him if it was at all possible. I loaded him into the back seat, buckling him into a lying position as I got into the driver's seat and began to drive. It was 45 minutes to the nearest hospital. I sped down the road, hearing his breathing grow harder and harder, his wiggling growing less and less audible. I was able to make the drive in 30 minutes, getting out and going to back, and I saw it was too late. Go to pick him up, he was stiff, his skin as hardened like sapling bark, locked into the fetal position in my back seat. I stopped myself, electing not to touch him, but went back to my driver's seat and just sat there. I caught my breath as a new text hit my phone. It was from Amy. "Were they able to get you out? I got to stop by the cabin because a bit of smoke was over there, and you weren't there. You owe me a Band-Aid for my kit, by the way. I went to touch your stupid plant, and it cut me." Story 9. No remains recoverable. Mission 2005-13. I've been a pararescue jumper for 15 years, stationed out of Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. We train for the worst: wideouts, avalanches, mechanical failures in the middle of nowhere. But some calls stick with you, not because of the weather or the terrain, but because of what waits out there. This one happened in the winter of 2005, up in the Brooks Range. We got the alert around 0200. An Army Black Hawk out of Wainwright had gone down during a night training flight. Mechanical failure. No mayday after the initial call. For crew on board, the beacon pinged deep in a valley near the Arrogech Peaks, remote, rugged country that even locals avoid in winter. Command decided on a single PJ insertion. Terrain too tight for a full team hoist, and the weather window was narrow. Just me. I jumped from the Pave Hawk at 1,500 feet, static line, into a howling wind, landed in waist-deep powder on a frozen riverbed. The chopper located the crash site by IR. The Black Hawk had clipped a ridge, tumbled, and wedged upside down against a granite wall. Tail boom sheared off, rotors scattered like broken teeth, still smoldering. No bodies in the cockpit. Seats empty. Harnesses unbuckled. One set of tracks leading away. Deep, staggered, like someone injured but moving fast. Had to be one of the crew, maybe the pilot. Survival instinct kicking in. I followed them. The prince climbed out of the valley, straight up a slope that should have been impossible in flight boots with possible broken bones. Snow was fresh. No wind yet to cover them. After an hour, the tracks didn't waver, didn't pause. No blood drops, no drag marks. Just purposeful, like he knew exactly where he was headed. I'd heard the stories during cultural briefs with Yupik and Inupiat liaisons. The Tornet, old ones, the first people here before the Inuit. Giants, taller than any man, covered in thick hair, stronger than bears. They lived alongside the ancestors once, share hunting grounds. But something broke the peace. A Tornet damaged a kayak, or worse. The Inuit fought back, drove them off. Now they hide in the mountains, the deep valleys, vengeful. They don't kill quick, they take you. Hunters go missing up north. Traps smashed, bodies found torn apart or never found at all. And the smell, rotten meat, wet fur, something ancient. I told myself it was bullshit. Focus on the mission. The tracks led into a narrow gorge I didn't remember from the maps. Walls closed in, blocking the wind. Everything went dead quiet. My breath echoed. Then I smelled it, faint at first, then thick, choking, like a carcass left too long in the sun, mixed with musk. The prince ended at a cave mouth, half hidden by overhang, big enough for a bear den, but the edges were worn smooth, like used for centuries. Inside, my headlamp caught movement. He was there, the pilot, Captain Reyes. Standing in the center, flight suit ripped, but no visible injuries. Back to me, motionless. Captain Reyes, PJ Staff Sergeant Campbell. I'm here to get you out. No response. I stepped closer, carbine low. Sir, turn around. We got exfil inbound. He turned slowly. His face was wrong. Eyes too wide, skin pale and stretched. Mouth hanging open, breath steaming in the cold. Then he grinned, too many teeth, too sharp. A low rumble filled the cave. Not from him. From deeper in, the air dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Frost crawled over the walls. Behind Reyes, something shifted in the shadows. Huge, 10 feet, maybe more. Shaggy hair matted with ice, arms hanging low, knuckles dragging. It stepped into the light. Face almost human, but flattened, eyes small and black. It stank of death and wilderness. Reyes, or what was left of him, tilted his head and made a sound. Not words. A grunt, deep animal. The thing reached out one massive hand and rested on Reyes' shoulder. Gentle, almost. Reyes didn't flinch. I backed up. Stay where you are. It looked at me then. No anger. Just hunger. Ancient. I ran. The gorge seemed longer going out. Footsteps behind. Slow, heavy, shaking snow from the walls. That smell followed. Thicker. I didn't look back until I hit the riverbed. The tracks were gone. Cave mouth too, like the rock had sealed over. Exfil picked me up an hour later. Official report. Crew deceased on impact. Remains unrecoverable due to structural instability and avalanche hazard. I still fly missions up north. Sometimes, in the quiet between rotor thumps, I smell it on the wind, and I wonder if the Tornet are still waiting for the next machine to fall from the sky. They remember us, and they don't forgive. Story 10. My dead father opened the door for me today. I started visiting my mother more often after my father died, but I never expected him to answer the door. It took a toll on my mother. She seemed like a shell of herself. Grief takes a long time to process. I understand that. But seeing her this heartbroken crushed me. She lives 3 hours away. The drive that day took more than 5 hours. The weather has been bad the past few days. When I finally arrived, the deep fog had set in. Her house wasn't even visible from the driveway. I knocked on the door. Footsteps echoed in the hall. A strong smell of damp earth filled the air. Someone was walking with a limp. Each step made a wet, mushy sound. Then the door opened. A wave of shock ran through my body. I stumbled back and fell onto the grass. Before me stood my father, staring. His face was devoid of color, skin barely hanging on. His eyes were bloodshot and deep in their sockets. Dirt clung to his tangled hair. He was dressed in his old clothes and slippers. My thoughts scattered. How could this be? I saw his body in the casket at the funeral. Then my mom came behind him. She saw the terror in my eyes. "Oh, honey, it's okay, come here." She tried to pick me up off the ground. "No, Mom, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is that?" "Johnny, stop it right now. It's your father." "Mom, that's not Dad. Dad's dead." My mom slapped my face. "You better stop that, Johnny. Your father is alive and he's right here." My father grabbed my mom's shoulder and tried to flash a smile. My mom touched his hand and looked back at him with love in her eyes. "Please, Johnny, this is a blessing from God." I stared back at him in bewilderment, my body still shaking with fear. "Come on inside, Johnny. It's cold out," she said, and made her way to the house. My father walked behind her slowly. I walked back to my car, put the keys in the ignition, and got ready to leave. But what about my mom? What if he hurt her? I sat there for a minute and then got up and reluctantly followed him inside. The smell of food in the kitchen masked the smell of damp, dirty air. Mom made steak and mashed potatoes, my dad's favorite. I couldn't take my eyes off him. His hands moved mechanically, devoid of purpose. "Okay, let's say a prayer before the meal." My dad's hand reached out to me. I looked at it with disgust. Mom scolded me with her eyes. I unwillingly reached back and held it. The hand was cold and damp. My dad didn't close his eyes during prayer. He stared dully ahead. My appetite was gone. I barely ate, mostly playing with my food. Dad also didn't seem too hungry. He cut a piece of steak and tried to eat it, but swiftly spat it back out onto his plate. "What's wrong, darling?" "Hungry." "Oh, but why won't you eat some of your steak? You don't like it, honey?" "Hungry?" he yelled. It made me drop my cutlery. My mom's eyes widened. I could see the fear in them. "Your dad is probably just tired, Johnny. I'm going to take him quickly upstairs, okay? I'm not going to let you go alone with him, Mom." "Johnny, you stop that right now." She screamed out. "You sit right here, young man. Don't get up from your food." She talked to me like I was a little boy again, no matter how much I protested. She was determined. We agreed that if she didn't come down in 10 minutes, I would go up. I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? That my mother's in a room with her dead husband, who's come back alive. We would both get institutionalized. They'd been gone for a few minutes, but it felt like hours. My body was getting restless, legs shaking with anxiety. The fear rose until I couldn't take it anymore. I got up from the table and slowly walked up the stairs. A faint sound echoed to the hall as I climbed the stairs, a wet, crunching noise like a rake sweeping up muddy autumn leaves. The sound intensified as I got closer to the door. A strange coppery smell wafted from my parents' room. Upon entering the room, I saw a sight that haunts me to this day. My mom lay on the bed while my father ate her right arm. The blood was dripping onto the bed, soaking into the sheets, filling the room with a metallic odor. I let out a scream as my head started spinning. My father then looked up from his feast with the same dull look he had before, and with the blood of my mother around his mouth and teeth. My head got lighter until darkness absorbed my mind, and I fainted. When I came back, my vision was blurred. Mom lay on the bed, holding her bleeding arm with deep bite marks. But my father was not next to her anymore. "Johnny, I'm so happy you came up. Your father has been starving since he came back, and I can't feed him anymore." A sharp pain shot through my left arm. I turned and shock ran down my spine. My father was on all fours, biting down into my arm, eating away my flesh. I screamed out and punched the top of his head. My father let out a loud ugh and fell to the ground, Blood had poured and seeped onto the carpet. The smell of copper made me gag. Johnny, look what you have done to your poor father. I tried to talk, yell at my mother, but words wouldn't leave my mouth. She got out of bed and started making her way towards me, anger in her eyes. I immediately began running down the stairs onto the lawn. When I managed to calm myself down, I called 911. The police came to the house. What they found upstairs was my mother crying next to the corpse of my father. He was dressed in his old clothes, and fresh blood was around his mouth. But the body had been dead for weeks. No one believed my story, and my mother has not talked to me since. Edit. I now hear the damp footsteps from the hall. Hungry is echoing through the hall. The smell of damp dirt is filling the room.